something for the music. I know. Let's try to do life for 3 minutes. Keep it up there. One time.
Well, shit. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Steve Wright Show. Enjoy.
It's the Steve Wright Show. Failed director, actor, writer. It's the Steve Wright Show. It's the one who does hand puppet theater. Alan the dog and Chipper Lou. Won't you join them on YouTube? It's the Steve Wright Show. You gotta love that driving asshole guy.
And here is your host, failed director, actor, writer, Steve Wright.
Welcome back to The Steve Wright Show, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in for the absurd, the hilarious, and you guessed it, the sexy. We have a very special guest today, documentary filmmaker Justin Kreutzmann. Justin has worked with world-famous bands like The Who, U2, The Grateful Dead, and The Doors. And be sure to stick around for our follow-up interview with Justin. We had to catch up with him after the huge success of Long Strange Trip, the Grateful Dead documentary available on Amazon Studios. Justin got to work with an incredibly talented group of people led by executive producer Martin Scorsese. Like I said, we have a very special guest today. Alan, take it away. It's the Steve Wright Show. Failed director, actor, writer. It's the Steve Wright Show.
You see the red lights on, man,
What's that?
right?
Oh, good eye, good eye. Hey, thank you, Steve. You're right. I am sitting here with Justin Kreutzmann, director, editor, documentarian. Thanks for being on the Steve Wright Show, dude.
You're welcome. Can I just start with, decaf tastes just as good as the regular coffees, but
I'm hyper. Hey, dude, let's get down to biz nasty. Dude, I actually saw some of your work, loved it, and didn't realize it was you.
you've done time in jail.
Nice. We are going to get along so well, dude.
Some of my best audiences are the most captive.
I love it. Yeah, dude, 2009, I watched the entire U2 concert on YouTube. That whole opening of, U2 showing up, Bono and all those guys walking through the Rose Bowl and backstage, that was you!
That was me. That was the biggest band I've ever worked with for the shortest amount of time. So I'm milking that for everything it's possibly worth.
Amazing, amazing. But dude, working with U2, come on, dude.
And it was pretty awesome because they had their camera guy who was supposed to go back and interview The Edge and Bono because, their inner sanctum is like none you've ever believed besides like the prayer circle and the Buddhist temple and everything that's back there. Nobody, unless you're like on the most intimate crew, are allowed back there. And so I'm just the guy nobody knows. And I was the only one. And their camera guy's camera broke.
Okay.
So they're like, dude, we need you to go like talk to Bono and Edge. And I'm like,
dude,
I can do that. So I was hanging out with those guys. So they all leave, all the management. So it's me and Edge. And when you're like, okay, this is where you should say something so cool.
Yeah.
And just like this, and I just stand there like, hey Edge. First of all, you're calling somebody Edge. So that feels kind of cool. But no, anyway, those guys were really nice to me for the 2 minutes I worked with them. But I did a couple of videos that I believe was used on the DVD Blu-ray release from the 360 tour.
Very nice, very nice. And dude, great story, dude. The Edge. Did you call him The Edge or Edge?
I said The Edge. I mean, I wasn't really sure, what the politically correct way. He was really friendly. It was that awkward moment of two people sitting 5 feet from each other who don't know each other and having to kill about 5 minutes.
Awesome.
But funny enough, he had just been up to the Grateful Dead studio because I think U2 played Oakland or San Francisco right before coming to the Rose Bowl.
Oh.
But I didn't know how to work that into I was trying to name drop but not seem name droppy and sort of.
Sure.
I figured that would give us something to chat about, but then everybody else came back in. So my Edge window.
Very nice.
Had collapsed.
Well, that's a perfect segue, actually. So first, my next question, 1970, possibly the most famous rockumentary of all time, rock documentary, Woodstock.
Yes.
Tell me the story of you being in Woodstock, dude.
Well, let's put it this way. I was 3 months old.
Uh-huh.
Obviously, diapers, diaper bag, and all the stuff that a young child needs to have with him.
Sure.
And my parents fly me across the country to a field in upstate New York, and I've always asked why. It seemed an odd choice to me. I don't know. They were in their early 20s and possibly the biggest show ever of the Grateful Dead's career.
Amazing.
And they brought me And if you look at the film, there's a little section, about 5 seconds, where you see us getting off a helicopter, and my mom's carrying me, and my dad's got my diaper bag.
Amazing. And who's your pop?
My dad's Bill Kreutzmann. He's the drummer of the Grateful Dead.
Nice. Amazing, dude.
But interesting enough, Pete Townsend brought his oldest daughter, who were 2 months apart in age, and Woodstock was her first show, funny enough. So for some weird reason, and they came from England.
Incredible.
So, I thought my dad was the only crazy 60s rock guy, but apparently there are more.
Awesome. And you worked with The Who.
I did. The Who have always been my favorite band.
Nice.
Growing up, you always have like the band that really speaks to you, and The Who were it for me.
Nice.
And the cool part about my life is because the Grateful Dead and The Who played together. Like I got to ask, and I got Pete Townsend's office address.
Incredible.
And when I was 11, he answered a fan letter. I mean, it was literally like 3 sentences, like, "Hey, thanks for writing. Good to meet you." And I was hooked. Like, I just think that he did that was pretty awesome. But ever since I was 8, I've been making movies. So I would send them to Pete. And then in 2006, when The Who were about to go out, and he was doing this whole In the Attic web series, they wanted somebody to document it. And Pete wrote, and he's just like, you know what? I've seen everything you've done since you were 8. I might as well hire you.
Amazing.
So
That's
then
cool.
I was over in England for 2 years, touring with The Who and Pete.
Oh, incredible, dude. Yeah, touring with The Who. I mean, for 2 years?
It was like the perfect opportunity for me to be doing what I love with my favorite. It was
That
just
is incredible,
It was like
dude.
bucket list, like just
Incredible.
checking stuff off all the time. And like David Bowie walks by, you're like, oh, cool, that's David Bowie. That's awesome.
Incredible, dude. And you're like videotaping behind the scenes stuff, documentary type stuff?
Well, that's the thing. You're doing the documentary. You're Pete's guy.
Yeah.
So basically, you can stand next to him, and everybody wants to talk to Pete, and he gives the nod, like, "No, he's with me." And so
Nice.
then you're like in. I was the guy on the crew who was the unashamed Who fan. Like, I'm just
Awesome.
like, it doesn't seem cool when you're like the band you're working for. They're my favorite band, but I was like, fuck that.
Very nice.
This is my band.
Well, and dude, speaking of this kind of work, Fare Thee Well tour. You were there. More stuff that we watched of yours is the set break material.
Yeah.
That was awesome, dude. The
Thank you.
50 celebrating 50 years.
Nepotism has its privileges.
Sure.
So we did that. Really, my job started. I was the creative director because
Okay.
we had a webcasting crew. We had video screens.
Sure.
For the show. We were doing a documentary that Rhino then put out. So I was kind of the guy overseeing all that.
Sweet.
And so we did movies to be shown before the first set and during the set break, and then I cut all that stuff and we put out a box set of the Chicago shows.
Oh, sweet. It was one of the Chicago shows that Steve and I watched. Dude, did they have a drone?
They did not have a drone.
Really?
We had a
What the hell was that?
We had a Skycam.
Really?
Well, we had a Skycam and a blimp.
What is a Skycam?
Skycam is what they use in the NFL when you see those shots from the center of the field
Sure.
and they're kind of flying over.
Okay.
Yeah, it's totally awesome, but like
Yeah.
it's different like when you're filming people throwing a pass or when you're filming deadheads who are like, oh.
Nice.
And so you get all these shots of people like, wow, like just and we're like, dude, the show's that way.
Fantastic, dude. So I was Googling you, and I saw a picture of you.
That's kind of private.
It is a little private. But yeah, I saw a picture of you and Jerry Garcia. And I
Yeah.
think you were 13, 14. Do you have one story about Jerry Garcia? I mean, come on. That guy, obviously, bigger than life. For you, you knew him. You know, you grew up knowing the guy. Any one story there?
Well, the funny thing is when you know, as anybody in your life, when you know them and it's somebody that everybody is very interested in, it's
Sure.
the kind of mundane things that you remember most fondly, like when you're doing a recording session, he's like, hey, let's go see Blue Velvet, and you drive with Jerry into the city, and you just go, you know what I mean? But nothing really, but a funnier one that's probably more entertaining is in Marin, you could take the ferry from Sausalito and go into San Francisco, and so sometimes when we were making In the Dark, we'd have to go into the city and be like, let's just take the ferry just to get out. And so we're on the ferry, and as everybody knows, when you get to the dock, everybody pushes up to the front door, and like any kind of travel, we're standing there waiting, and I've got my like Grateful Dead logo shirt on, which is a big emblazoned Grateful Dead thing.
Nice.
Jerry's standing right next to me, and this businessman is standing right over there, and the guy looks at me and goes, GD, is that like Grateful Dead? And I'm like, yeah. And you see Jerry just go, okay, here it comes. Here it comes.
My God.
And the guy's like, I love them, big fan.
Oh,
And then walks
my
off
God.
the boat, and Jerry and I both look at each other and go.
That is hilarious.
So like it's those funny little moments. I mean, I remember sitting next to him at the Bill Graham tribute show in the park, and Robin Williams came over because they had never met, and I just happened to be sitting there and got to watch them have the conversation. And funny enough, Jerry was talking about this guy who used to stand in the third row with a little puppet.
Oh, yeah?
and mime along to the show and sort of
Amazing.
encourage him. And Robin thought that was funny. It's like just little things. I mean, it doesn't really. It was just,
Sure.
just to watch those two guys meet. Those things. I don't take any of that for granted. That's all
Sure.
like very special things. And I'm just, it was one of those moments that I always have that.
Awesome, dude. Awesome. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, man. Hey, let's plug the other one, The Long Strange Trip of Bob Weir. Tell me about that a little bit, because we interviewed Mark Weingarten here on the show as well. So tell me about that project and how it led to you working with Mark.
Well, that project led me to Los Angeles, and Mark and my friend Mike Fleiss.
Nice.
And, Mike Fleiss called me, and he's working on this movie, and can I come down and meet with him?
Cool.
And I obviously knew who he was.
Sure.
Fortunately, because of my history and my work, I obviously can contribute a lot to
Of course.
the Grateful Dead project.
Yeah.
So
I love it. And that's on Netflix.
that is on Netflix.
The other one. I love that movie, dude. I've seen it twice.
It's good. It's
Yeah.
good.
It's really entertaining, man.
I was proud to be a part of it. I was proud people liked it, and I was happy for Mike. He was the director and producer, and it really shows his creativity in the music genre.
Super cool, dude. But Justin, thank you so much for being on the Steve Wright Show, man.
Anytime.
Seriously, this was a great
Anytime.
conversation, man, and I think what you do is super cool. I love your work. Yeah, thanks for chatting about it.
Just make me look cool for my kids. It's because they're going to want to meet you after they see this.
Oh, will do, man.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, buddy.
Back to you, Steve.
Well, shit. Actually, Alan, that is a negative-erino. We're going to take a quick jump into the futurino, where future Steve is standing with future Justin Kreutzmann. This is Chopper Lou, signing off.
Thank you, Chopper Lou. That is true. I am actually standing with Justin Kreutzmann. So tell me about Long Strange Trip. You worked with Martin Scorsese on the Grateful Dead documentary, Long Strange Trip.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously it's Scorsese, so he's a genius, and he came aboard as an executive producer, and the whole world blossomed. Suddenly, people are like, yeah, whatever, yeah, well, maybe another music doc, whatever. Scorsese? Oh, now you're cool. So I didn't have a lot of hands-on dealing with him, but we got his people, so his editors and his producers, and so all these really talented folks that when you went to their IMDb pages, you're like, oh, that person that I'm in like this email exchange with did, Goodfellas.
Sure.
Something like that.
Now, I watched Long Strange Trip. Loved it. You know I'm a
you.
Dead fan.
Thank you.
But I absolutely loved it. I also love the part where Jerry Garcia is looking at the Watts Towers and has that epiphany that as a single artist, you can build something that can't be torn down after you die.
Yeah.
And I remember I just thought it was so cool. He thought, I don't want that.
Yeah.
I want to be part of the here and now.
So what you're saying is
Yeah.
like in hindsight, that guy made the wrong decision.
No. Well, he accomplished both.
Well,
He wanted one, but both were achieved, it seemed like.
yes and no. I mean, I think he would have had a really wonderful life if he had taken out sort of the fame element and just kept the creativity and the success and all that.
Sure.
But, I don't know. Nobody likes to get hassled.
No,
So-
absolutely. Well, I know that was, of course, the sad part of the movie where he's like kind of a prisoner in his own hotel.
Yeah, there's definitely some dark things in that movie,
Yeah.
and funny enough, it could have probably been a lot darker, but fortunately, there's only a few of us who really know the true secrets, and
Cool.
that's what we hold over them to this day.
Very nice.
That's how we get these jobs.
Absolutely.
We got it in theaters, and we got nominated for a Grammy, and we got on what's called the short list for an Oscar, and I'm from like Marin, so I'm not really savvy to the business, but
Yeah.
apparently it was like a big thing. So we had this like Oscar party that Gus Van Sant hosted with Kim Gordon of Sonic Youth. That was really cool.
That's
'cause I was
amazing.
Like, oh my
Yeah.
God, you're Kim Gordon. And she's super nice.
Cool.
And Gus is totally cool, and
I love the Frankenstein imagery because it opens with that.
yeah.
I just thought that was so cool, and I remember thinking, I hope this continues, and it did throughout the whole movie.
Yeah,
So that was really cool. His identifying with what's weird and what made him feel.
Well, here's the thing about Jerry.
Yeah.
He only had like 5 or 6 main guitars throughout his career, and now they're going for millions of dollars when each one is sold. And he had one called Tiger, and it's in the Grateful Dead movie. It's to Deadheads. It's a very famous guitar. He used to like leave it lying around his house. You know what I mean? I messed around with it. It was just once he was playing a different guitar.
Yeah.
It's not like it was like treasured behind glass. But his comic books, like you couldn't touch them. He had them organized alphabetically in plastic, wrapped. Kids weren't allowed near them.
Awesome.
Like, you know what I mean? Like it was just fun. Like literally, he treasured comic books and horror movies and all that kind of stuff to a point that it was one of the few things that, we weren't allowed to touch.
Yeah.
Guitar, whatever. But comic book, don't even... So it's like Spinal Tap, don't look at it.
Don't touch it. Don't
well,
touch
I
it.
wasn't gonna touch it.
No, don't touch it.
I was just pointing at it.
Well, don't point even.
Don't
It
even
can't
point?
No, it can't be played. Never. I mean,
Can I look at it?
No, you've seen
Don't
enough
look
of
at
that
it.
one.
Just the word fun. He mentions that word, and it kind of goes back to being part of the experience and part of the here and now.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was an interesting word that came up several times.
And I guess I thought to myself on some level, I think I want to be concerned with things that are weird. I think that seems interesting to me because it seems like fun.
You're talking about somebody who desperately didn't want to have a real job. So anything that wasn't, as he said, anything that keeps him from pumping gas at a gas station, all good by him. He figured every day that he played music and got paid for it was a good day.
I love that. Cool. One last thing I was going to mention is sort of towards the very end of the movie, they asked Jerry Garcia, they're like, why do you think all these people are coming to your shows, showing how bigger and bigger? And he said, I think people travel and go on these journeys to see the shows to do something fun, that word fun again, in an otherwise lame world. And I identified with that because that is why I go see Phish shows today. Just for an adventure.
It was a continuation from all my reading of like the Beat Generation, and you grab a suitcase, you hit the road, you stick your thumb out back when you can hitchhike and not be taken away and murdered, and you just literally like the book, you're on the road. And I think my impression is that the Grateful Dead gave a lot of people the opportunity to do that. They probably would have found their own journeys, but that gave somebody a collective. I preferred a limo and a nice hotel room, and but
to each his own.
Yeah, I would have failed as a deadhead. I would have been a miserable. I would have been the whiny deadhead that nobody wanted to hang out with.
That's probably more me. I love that. Cool. Well, thanks for talking to us about that, man. That's super cool, man. Yeah, love the movie. On Amazon Prime. So definitely check that out. So now tell me a little bit about this Doors documentary that you're working on right now. It's finished, correct?
It's close. On April 28th, we are premiering in Asbury Park at the Music and Film Festival there. It's a tribute to Ray Manzarek. We shot it 2 years ago at the Fonda. It was his birthday. We filmed it, and then I'm like, I'm not a big fan of just guys on stage for like 2 hours.
Sure.
Yeah. Music's great, and it's fun to watch. So I was like, do you mind if I kind of make some kind of documentary out of it? So literally, they took me down to where they keep their archives. They're like, here, these are the film drives. Use what you need. So I got to go through the entire Doors film archive and use all this unreleased footage of Jim and Ray and the band back in the late 60s for a film they were doing called Feast of Friends. And now we're done. It's got some great guests like Robert DeLeo from Stone Temple Pilots, Stephen Perkins from Jane's Addiction, John Doe and Exene from X, Rami from the Foo Fighters.
I saw Robert Krieger play once with Particle at the El Rey.
Oh, okay.
So that was just amazing. I felt like I was just seeing history, man. It was awesome.
They're such cool guys.
Cool.
And because he came to, I used to work at TRI Studios, which was Bob Weir's. It's still a studio, but we used to do a lot of live webcasting there.
Cool.
And he came to promote the Doors at the Hollywood Bowl. So I got to meet Ray, and we filmed him. So we had all this interview stuff done by Ben Fong Torres, who's a very famous Rolling Stone editor, former Rolling Stone editor. But he had the last interview of Jim Morrison, and it turned out he did the last interview of Ray Manzarek.
Incredible.
So I didn't want to, tempt fate, but I had him interview Robbie and John too.
Sure.
So hopefully, it's all going to work out on that one. But it was good.
Cool. And what's it called? What's this documentary called?
It's called Break On Through, a celebration of Ray Manzarek and the Doors.
Very nice. So thank you very much, man. I appreciate you coming out.
Always,
Again,
always.
for the follow-up.
Of course.
Cool.
Won't you join Steve for a Mai Tai at Shi Dynasty, 1813 Hillhurst Avenue,